There are moments in life when we feel unworthy, moments when we replay our mistakes, when shame whispers that we've gone too far, failed too often, or disappointed God one too many times. But what if I told you that God's grace was never dependent on your performance? What if the very thing you think disqualifies you is the place where grace shines the brightest? Stay with me, because understanding the grace of God doesn't just change how you see God, it changes how you see yourself. Grace is one of the most beautiful words in the Christian faith, and yet one of the most misunderstood. Grace is not God lowering his standards. Grace is not permission to live carelessly. Grace is not something we earn. Grace is God giving us what we do not deserve. The Bible tells us in Ephesians 2:8-9, "For it is by grace you have been saved, through faith. And this is not from yourselves, it is the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast." Grace is a gift. That means you cannot earn it by being good enough. You cannot lose it by being imperfect. And you cannot manipulate it by trying harder. Grace begins where striving ends. So, why do so many believers struggle to truly live in grace? Because we are wired for performance. From a young age, we learn that love must be earned, approval must be achieved, acceptance must be proven. And slowly, without even realizing it, we project that mindset onto God. We think, if I pray more, God will love me more. If I stop failing, God will finally accept me. If I do better, I'll deserve his blessing. But grace confronts that lie. Romans 5:8 says, "But God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." Not when you fixed yourself. Not when you cleaned up your life. Not when you figured it all out. While you were still broken. Grace meets us before transformation, not after. Look at the life of Jesus. He did not surround himself with the religious elite. He didn't chase approval from the morally perfect. He ate with sinners. He touched the unclean. He defended the guilty. Think about the woman caught in adultery. She was dragged into public shame, condemned before she could speak. The law demanded punishment. Religion demanded judgment. But Jesus stood between her and her accusers and said, "Let him who is without sin cast the first stone." One by one, the stones fell. Then Jesus said something powerful. "Neither do I condemn you. Go, and sin no more." Grace did not ignore her sin. Grace removed her condemnation. Grace doesn't say, "Your sin doesn't matter." Grace says, "Your sin doesn't define you." Here is a truth many believers struggle to accept. If you are in Christ, God does not see you through the lens of your past. He sees you through the finished work of Jesus. Romans 8:1 declares, "Therefore, there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus." No condemnation. Not some. Not partial. Not temporary. None. Grace means you are not on probation with God. You are not tolerated. You are not barely accepted. You are fully forgiven and fully loved. When God looks at you, he doesn't see your failures. He sees his Son. One of the most powerful aspects of grace is this: grace is strongest where we are weakest. The Apostle Paul pleaded with God to remove his weakness, his thorn in the flesh. God's response was not removal, it was revelation. In 2 Corinthians 12:9, God says, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Grace doesn't wait for strength. Grace works through weakness. That means your struggle does not disqualify you. Your weakness does not repel God. Your limitations do not frustrate him. They become the stage where his power is displayed. There is a difference between living for grace and living from grace. Living for grace says, "I must earn God's approval." Living from grace says, "I obey because I am already accepted." Grace doesn't produce laziness, it produces love. When you know you are forgiven, You don't want to run from God. You want to run toward Him. Titus 2:11-12 tells us, "For the grace of God has appeared, that offers salvation to all people." It teaches us to say no to ungodliness. Grace teaches. Grace transforms. Grace empowers holiness from the inside out. Maybe today you feel spiritually tired, disappointed in yourself, afraid that God has grown weary of you. Hear this clearly: God's grace is not running out. God's patience is not thinning. God's love is not conditional. Lamentations 3:22-23 reminds us, "Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for His compassions never fail. They are new every morning." New grace. Every morning. Not recycled, not leftover, not diminished. New. The grace of God is not something you graduate from. It is something you grow deeper into. Grace is what saves you. Grace is what sustains you. Grace is what carries you home. So stop striving. Stop hiding. Stop believing the lie that you must earn what Jesus already paid for. Let grace meet you where you are and transform you into who God created you to be. Because where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more.